This episode of Head in the Office is brought to you by Ground News.
Media literacy is a key component of our podcast here, but spotting the biases in news and reporting, especially in our nonstop media landscape, can be hard. Thankfully, the folks over at Ground News are working to make this a lot easier.
Ground News is an app and a website that collects news from all around the world and puts it in one place so you can compare coverage, uncover political biases, and learn who is funding each publication.
Ground News has a lot of cool features, such as the bias distribution, which shows you the political leanings of the sources reporting on each story, and the blind spot tab, which highlights stories that are being missed by either the left or the right. Ground News will even tell you your own news bias based on the articles you've read on their site.
If you're interested in Ground News, you can go to check.groundnews/headintheoffice for 15% off. The link is also in the description, and we would suggest taking a look at their Vantage plan to unlock all the fancy features we've referenced before. And subscribing to Ground News also helps out the show, which we know you all want to do.
Very important. Special thanks to Ground News for sponsoring this podcast, and back to the episode.
As you all may be aware, the Olympics started this week. You know, once every 4 years, the big event, bunch of countries get together, massive, right? Everybody tunes in at least a little bit to watch.
Yeah.
And since it started this week, the opening ceremony was also this week, and it's in Paris. It was pretty cool. There was a bunch of stuff going on. They did some Marie Antoinette thing. Sick, right?
Yeah.
But there was this one point that conservatives, the Christian right basically in this country has been hyper focusing on, and it was this instance where they brought out some, I think it was drag queens, trans people, and like a naked lady to be like the Greek god of wine or whatever the fuck. And it was sort of set up in a parody of The Last Summer. Or I don't even want to say a parody of The Last Supper, but a just like doing the Last Supper pose.
Okay.
And Christian conservatives here absolutely freaked the fuck out about it. And one, I want to say I don't understand, but I do, because trans people, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Trans people, trans panic, they can't stand that. But two, The Last Supper is one of those things, one of the most famous paintings in the entire world.
Yeah, it goes far beyond Christianity.
Exactly. And the iconography of it has well established within pop culture. Everything you've ever seen at one point has done a parody of The Last Supper. Fucking Family Guy, The Simpsons, literally everything with an ensemble cast has brought that ensemble cast together to replicate the imagery of The Last Supper.
Or just go beyond The Last Supper. Tons of things in culture and entertainment use religious, specifically Christian iconography.
Yes.
Like, for example, Anakin Skywalker is Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? Nobody thinks that's blasphemous, though. We put an angel on the back of our shirts last year.
Exactly. Like, religious imagery, I don't want to say mocked, but like religious imagery is used throughout media.
Because sometimes it's hard as hell.
Different ways. And it is. It looks fucking sick. Those paintings are dope. You know what I mean?
Or in the recent season of Jujutsu Kaisen, when Sukuna hit the fucking Jesus pose.
Exactly.
That was cool.
Oh God, I think the Chainsaw Man opening, you have Makima as an angel. Throughout Chainsaw Man, there are so many different references to Christianity. Nobody bats an eye when it comes to things like that. It's cool and it looks sick as fuck. And the Last Supper poses, cool poses. Looks very good together.
He's got the
famously well composed image.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? The only issue that conservatives really have with it is that it's queer people.
Of course.
It's queer people that are front and center of this thing, and it's queer people existing within Christianity. And they just can't fucking stand that for some reason. Never once have they ever gotten upset at a depiction of the Last Supper in any other way. It is simply because there was queer people within it.
Yeah, and maybe they can make an argument that it's at the Olympics, where I think the Olympics famously, they're not supposed to have like political imagery or anything like that. So maybe they'd consider the existence of trans people there, or drag queens or whatever, to be inherently selling a political message.
Well, of course the Christian right would think that when they see a trans person in a movie and say, oh, this is DEI.
Yeah, I saw some people claim that the Olympics wasn't allowing the yellow ribbon, the Israeli yellow ribbon signifying the hostages.
I saw that too. I don't know if that's true, though.
Yeah, I don't know how true that is either, even if it is whatever. It's a thing that people in media have always done. They always rip off of like Christian scripture, because especially in the United States, Christianity is the dominant religion. Of course, like almost all media in film are going to be informed or
pay homage or
to it,
take from, borrow from.
In fact, conservatives usually use that as a point of pride.
Yeah.
That Christianity is referenced so often in different forms of media. but when gay people use it, it's bad.
Exactly, because like the images are hard as fuck. You know what I mean?
And plenty of gay people are Christian.
Oh, absolutely.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Plenty of churches are pro-gay. You know what I mean? It's not like, however, I don't know. It's not like every church around is a Southern Baptist evangelical church. You know what I mean? There are plenty of progressive churches that exist. It's just the far Christian right in this country just being so fucking loud about something that they shouldn't be.
Yeah, there's a lot of churches like specifically in like the Metro Detroit area who will put it on like their signs outside that like we're accepting of all people.
Yeah.
Like they make it a point to separate themselves from the more right-wing religious part of the country to say like, look, we're accepting of all people, because they know that Christians are usually associated with being homophobic.
Especially because there's no genuine basis within the scripture
for
being homophobic. That's a new thing, people. That was like a new development in like what, the 60s or something like that?
Yeah, different translations and shit.
Exactly. Ridiculous. Did you also see the it's not even a controversy. I saw it on like Zionist, pro-Israel, like insane Zionist Twitter. People were talking about the Palestinian Olympic team and how does Palestine even have an Olympic team if they're going through a genocide? Really, there are 8 people on the Palestinian Olympic team. Where are they from? And they started doing the bullshit where it's like, well, they don't actually live there. They don't actually. No Olympians. Like half of the Olympians in most countries don't even fucking live there.
It's a nationality thing, isn't
exactly.
it?
Yeah. I think it's like some places it's like if you have citizenship there, you can come back and represent in the Olympics. I know someone who was on a college track team, and there was one of their teammates is from Ukraine, right? And she lives here, she competes here, she practices here, but she was able to go back to Ukraine for like their trials. You know,
Olympics is wholly a nationality thing.
Exactly.
Yeah,
you don't have to actually live there your entire life to represent there. Maybe you should have to. Maybe that could be a thing, but that's not how it works at all, actually.
Man.
And then they just started digging into all of these fucking people's the 8 fucking Palestinians on the Olympic team, their background. Like, wow, this one's actually from the USA, from here and doing this. Why should they be able to compete? They didn't actually qualify. They were just invited to come. Really, what is the what are the Olympics doing, trying to promote this or whatever? And it's like, what? You're a psychopath.
Just their existence, yeah.
You're
being there.
Just a psychopath.
I saw on Twitter one guy, I think it was a Palestinian, based on the context. There was a guy with a shirt that had some stitching on it that had like a plane
dropping on like
kids playing soccer. And it's like, it's pretty clear what the message is.
Yeah.
He's he has a public forum and he's showing like, this is what Israel is doing to my people.
Yeah,
at least I'm going to assume that's what it was. I don't like, why is that getting so much controversy? I don't really know.
I don't know. Probably just because I guess people just are uncomfortable with the political messaging in something like the Olympics, which is damn near one of like the only kind of apolitical events. You know what I mean? I don't know. I guess that's what it's got to be.
Olympics discourse is always so fucking annoying. I remember when we first started the pod, you remember all that stuff with Simone Biles, like taking a pause, and Charlie Kirk said she was un-American.
One of our first episodes. Yeah. Because that's the Olympics. 2020 Olympics were delayed to 21. Simone got the fucking twisties. She couldn't compete anymore, so she dropped out. And every conservative just absolutely jumped at the opportunity to call her un-American, call her a fucking traitor, because she had a mental health condition and couldn't compete in the Olympics anymore.
Despite being one of like the best athletes on the American team ever. Yeah.
just average. Like, one of the best athletes.
It's so fucking dumb. I hate it.
I despise it, dare I say. It's bad.
Welcome back to Head in the Office, everybody. We've got quite the loaded show for you. Less news this week than last week, because last week was a banger.
Exactly. We're more theory crafting this week.
Oh, we are theory crafting. We got to talk about all aspects of online discourse this week.
That's right.
Because there's quite a bit of it, and we're gonna get I hope you're ready to get niche with us.
Oh, absolutely.
We're getting niche on this episode here. We'll be talking about Kamala Harris and her victories so far online and in her money bag.
Oh my God.
Holy moly, record funding.
Ridiculous. And I just gotta say, like off dome before we even finish the welcome back.
Right.
I cannot believe Joe Biden dropped out a week ago. It feels like he did that a year ago.
Joe who?
Joe who?
Joe who?
It feels like he never was even in the race. Like at this point, the amount of shit that's happened in the last week it's just like. In the last week and the week before that and the week before that, I feel like I've aged 20 years.
It's not even just Joe Biden. It's that everyone's also forgotten about the Trump shooting.
Yes.
Like nobody cares.
That was 2 weeks ago. Yeah. And I was thinking about it. If the Trump shooting wouldn't have happened on Saturday, say it happened on a Sunday night or just any day after we recorded, we wouldn't by the time we got to it, it would have been fucking irrelevant.
Yeah, nobody cares anymore.
By the time we got to it, we would have had to cover the Trump assassination and Joe Biden dropping out. Like, it fell off.
Yeah, and it was funny that like right wingers are still trying to make the Trump assassination attempt relevant.
Yeah,
I saw Jack Posobiec had tried to say J13. They're trying to make it a thing like January 6th, but
he was a Republican.
Nobody cares anymore. Like Trump got like what, no boost in the polling at all?
Yes.
Maybe like a 1-point bump. Most people are like, shit, whatever.
My expectations were completely defied.
Yeah.
And then fucking spoiler for later in the episode, Kamala Harris out fundraised him by just becoming the nominee, or not the presumptive nominee. She raised more money than Trump did after he got shot.
Yeah. Joe Biden drops out and everyone's like, yeah, okay, good. Like, nobody cares.
All right, politics is back.
Oh, man, it's good. Anyway, welcome back to Head in the Office, everybody. If you want to support the show, I'll remind you all to go to patreon.com/headintheofficepod. You can also get a subscription to Ground News and help out the show.
Oh, that'd be pretty cool.
Link is in the description. You probably just heard the ad at the beginning of the episode. So if you want to support the show and get access to Ground News and all those cool features, make sure to do that. It's in the description. Get some merch drop, still pretty fresh.
Fresh and cool.
Headintheoffice.com. Subscribe to us on all the socials. It's in the description. Make sure you're registered to vote, especially if you're in Michigan.
Yes.
I don't know when the online
early voting started today, I think, right?
Yeah, I think it's the Saturday before the
or
election.
yesterday. Early voting started.
Yeah. So if you're in Michigan, make sure you vote. If you haven't got your absentee ballot, you might end up having to go vote in person. I don't know when all like the online deadlines and stuff are for that. I know that Michigan does have same-day registration, meaning you can register in person at your clerk's office from now up until the day of the election.
Pretty good.
In August is coming up pretty quick. And I'm telling you all this because we got a primary.
Yes, we do.
For Senate. And I don't want to vote for Alyssa Slotkin in November.
Have to get Hill Harper on the ticket. Harper Harris, baby. Come on.
Harper Harris, double H.
Double, it's perfect.
What are we doing?
Actually, double H, steer clear from that, but
why?
We don't want to HH.
Well,
1488 HH.
Oh, I understand.
Man.
Yeah. Well, either way, Hill Harper.
Hill Harper,
cool guy, better than Alyssa Slotkin.
100%.
If you're in Michigan, make sure you are casting your primary vote for him. Make sure you get your vote in on time. Very important. Leftists got to be more engaged in the primary process.
Absolutely.
We need to be. We complain too much.
It's pretty easy to go vote.
Yeah.
For most people, it's pretty easy to go vote.
Especially at primaries. There's going to be like no line.
Exactly.
It's not like a general election.
Walk right in. Nobody votes in those, which is a problem.
Yeah, and we should.
Yeah.
We should. But before we get into the show, of course, we got to read our 5-star reviews. We've got a couple of them today. The first one here is from Patreon. I forgot to put it in the show notes last week because, oh my God, so much was happening.
Exactly.
I mean, Trump almost died.
Guys, there's been so much news.
Joe Biden dropped out, and it slipped my mind. But this one is from Azim Fida Hussein. I hope I said that right. Let me begin by stating the obvious and condemning Hamas. As a Brit who's way too invested in American politics, I am shocked by the ridiculousness of discourse. To me, it seems that both sides are just trying to score culture war points in Twitter clips without actually representing the will of the people. Hey, don't hate on clips.
Guilty. Clips guilty as charged.
Clips are the heart of democracy. Hiddo is the beacon of hope with sane, well thought through takes, allowing for subtlety and nuance, which is much needed when approaching so many current issues. You guys are amazing, and it is an honor to now be able to come to church on Sundays.
Yes.
I have a question that I'd really want to ask you guys regarding the Lincoln Project. I've been watching their ads and following their socials for a while, and in my view, they seem to be an asset in the fight against Donald Trump. I know they're conservatives with some wild opinions, but is that the only reason to dislike them? Long live Head in the Office.
Yes.
Yeah.
I would argue that is the only reason to dislike them. They don't like Donald Trump, but that's really it. It's kind of like Mitt Romney is a real prominent figure in like that front. I don't think he was ever like a real Lincoln Project guy, but he presented himself as if he was not a Trump guy while voting with Trump, I think 97% of the time. All of the Lincoln Project guys pretty much believe the same things that Trump believes and all the abhorrent things that the Republican Party stands for. They just don't like the aesthetics of Trumpism.
Yeah, it's hard to believe it's not a grift.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Especially when, like you said, like the prominent members of the Lincoln Project sect of conservatives votes the same way with Donald Trump all the time.
Yeah.
I guess if they are to be an asset, like if we were to take them at face value, pretend that they're acting in good faith, and they work to rally people against Trump, then that's fine. But with any politician or political group, our support or I guess teamwork with them should be wholly conditional on how much we can use them to further our own goals.
Exactly.
And as soon as we relegate reactionaries to somewhere outside of political office, we should be prepared to fight them as hard as we can.
And it's not like they're really coming over on issues with Democrats.
They just don't like Trump.
Exactly. They're not like reaching across the aisle. Yeah. They still want to shut off those avenues. They still want to usher in what conservatism wants to, but they just don't like the mean tweets. Mm-hmm. Ridiculous.
Yeah, they want to be like Bush
yeah,
era.
Me, I'm a fan of the mean tweets, but I don't like the policies. We couldn't be more different.
Yeah. All right, you got this next one?
Yeah, this next review. I condemn political violence by Organ Pirate. But my first thought when I heard about the Trump's assassination attempt was, what day is it? Because I wanted to know if it would be on my weekly Wednesday weenie worship this week or next. It's amazing how my first thought when events happen in politics is whether I'll be able to hear auditory nectar that is this podcast Wednesday or next. I can't wait to make an AI to deep fake the Hiddo Boys so I can have them whisper sweet nothings to me while I fall asleep. Keep up the great work. P.S. I condemn Hamas and political violence.
Really good review.
We got the Hiddo ASMR podcast up next. Once we hit X amount on Patreon, we'll drop another show every week. Yeah,
this is really like a sort of esoteric review about our drop schedules, and if we get certain pieces of news into the episodes, that's I'm glad to know you guys are thinking of us when big news happens.
Exactly.
The last one here, Come for the Geopolitics, Stay for the Vibes by News God. As a PhD in political science and an actual professor of geopolitics at a small liberal arts college in the South, I don't think these boys even know who Mayeki or McKinder are, and would likely bomb my intro to IR final. I'll just say I passed intro to IR.
I never took it.
Thinking I don't know Helford McKinder? Come on now, brother. Yet they make up for it with strong condemnation of Hamas and all forms of political violence, which I share, and offer some of the most accessible left-of-center takes out there. I might even bring some of their content into my classes one of these days. that would be gold. TLDR, Hiddo is brat.
Oh, that's true.
Even my wife likes to listen, and I'm pretty sure she voted for Gary Johnson in 2016. We're winning libertarians.
That's right. We're reaching across the aisle. We're doing more work than the Lincoln Project is to bring people to our side. Let me tell you.
Yeah, Gary Johnson, a third party guy who also surprisingly never became the president.
I'm
starting to just strictly hate third parties, and the amount of it's just getting annoying.
The two third parties we're gonna rant a little bit this episode. The two third parties you only ever hear of are like the Libertarian Party and the Green Party, and sometimes there's another one that's escaping me. I wonder why it's escaping me. It's because it's irrelevant. You know what I mean? And they only ever come around every 4 years when it's presidential election time. Mm-hmm. They don't do any fucking work on the ground, like anywhere. I've heard people try and say that the Green Party does try and do stuff on the ground, but like maybe they lack funding, whatever. And it's like, okay, if you lack the funding to make any meaningful change in like a small community or win maybe a local state legislature seat, how do you expect to win the presidency? Yeah. And then how do you expect to use that presidency to get anything done?
And it's just like the most effective progressives are the ones who have ensconced themselves in the Democratic establishment.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like people like AOC, Ilhan Omar, Bernie Sanders, who is an independent yet caucuses with the Democratic Party.
Rashida Tlaib.
Yeah, Rashida Tlaib. Exactly. Like the progressives that actually end up doing things like legislatively, policy-wise, or even just in the sense of furthering the left-wing movement are people that are that unfortunately bite their tongue and join the Democratic Party.
Yes, and they've adopted the party infrastructure to get the change done where they can.
Because
crazy.
Primaries matter.
They do.
AOC beat a dude who had sat in that district for I don't know how many years because she was willing to challenge him.
And now she's incredibly popular.
There's like thousands of races across the country that just go unchallenged every year.
Yeah.
Like most seats are safe seats in this country.
It's crazy because primaries are the best and really the only opportunity that we as voters have, because we all should be voters. It's very easy to do for most of us. It's the one opportunity that we have to actually hold people accountable and actually pressure them into positions they otherwise wouldn't consider. Literally the only time we have to do that. Other than that, the only pressure that they receive is from the establishment of whichever party they're a part of.
Yeah.
We ought to make that voice heard.
Yeah, and like the natural response to that is often that when we run progressives, especially in like, you know, purple areas, that they struggle to win even in primaries because there's no party infrastructure behind them. And it's certainly the case that it's an uphill battle. You know what I mean? Like the Democratic Party in a lot of ways is captured by similar capitalistic forces that the Republican Party is captured by, although there's nuance to talk about there. But that's the role of being a progressive.
Yes.
Is fighting against systems that have far more power than you could ever dream of having.
Exactly. And then you could get into a position where you could be Tim Walz, who's doing communism in Wisconsin.
Yeah. It's just, it gets annoying to me because, like, people, communists, for example, in the United States, people that really fought for labor rights or expansions to different regulations, they fought for decades. Some of them died before those changes ever happened just to see a little bit of policy change. Like, that is the history of progressivism, is banging on locked doors until they finally open, or kicking them down if you have to.
Yeah.
It takes a long time, and it's just, I feel like people spit on the memory of so many past progressive movements when they just expect things to change after one election cycle. It gets very annoying.
And voting is just one tool. I routinely see discourse that's like, okay, we vote blue this time, and then in 4 years we're in the same predicament where we have to vote blue or the fascist comes into power. One, yes.
Literally, yes, yeah.
Two, that's why in the middle of those 4 years, we do the work on the ground, we do the advocacy, and we do the organizing to actually make it easier to not have to vote for either the fascist or the blue guy.
It's just, primaries are important.
It's so important.
And I am glad to see that a lot of people are coming around on this.
Yes.
You know, it was a very unpopular thing to say, and maybe we didn't say it in a very appealing way back in November.
I can give that.
Yeah, but a lot of people are coming around on the idea that, like, yeah, Kamala Harris is a cop, and we'll talk about that narrative a little bit today, but she is far better than Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And even if she's identical to Joe Biden on the policy issues, it won't be as bad as what Donald Trump is going to do. Some people are coming around on that. Some people are still pushing back against that, saying they're not going to vote, or saying they're going to vote for Cornel West or RFK or whatever. But a lot more people are coming around on that, and I think that's purely because Kamala Harris is less depressing than Joe Biden.
Yes.
This doesn't mean that these people are morally consistent, but it does mean that they've been motivated, and our calculus that Joe Biden is a depressing figure was completely correct.
A1 political analysis from this podcast.
Again, like, the moral consistency, if you want to be consistent in our electoral system, it is voting for harm reduction, but that doesn't mean the Democratic Party is always doing the best job and convincing people to vote for their party for harm reduction, right?
Just, I can't understate how voting, it's just one thing that you can do. It's just one thing that you can do. You show up once every 2 years, really. Or twice every 2 years when you think about primaries, then just do it.
You know, it can be hard for people in red states like Texas or Georgia that, like, actively work against you being able to vote, especially if you're a person living in a big city or in a majority minority area. You know what I mean? Like, they're very clearly trying to suppress black people from being able to vote.
They're doing it for a reason.
But yeah, all the more reason to try to vote.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But again, it's just it's what progressives do.
And you know, speaking of voting and candidates. K-Hive's rising.
K-Hive rising.
Folks, K-Hive absolutely rising. And this week, K-Hive certainly rose. I like I said a couple minutes ago, I forgot that Joe Biden dropped out of the race a week ago. It does not feel like it's been a week since he's dropped out.
Who cares?
He was never a candidate in my mind.
Exactly. I don't care. He's just a husk wandering around the West Wing at this point.
I keep seeing people. I still see people on Twitter come out and say, like, oh, but it's undemocratic. The party elite are the ones that the Biden lovers, apparently, coming out of the woodwork and saying the Democratic Party elites are doing this and they're not letting you vote for your representative. I think for reasons we'll explore in a little bit, it's pretty clear that this is what the base wanted.
Yeah.
Kamala Harris stepping up and running is very much what the base wants.
Yeah. I'm fine with it. Me personally.
Great with it.
So last week, we left you with a lot of questions, but some excitement as well, as we predicted. But as we predicted, the focus has narrowed, and we have a much better picture of what's going to happen as we head into November. This past week has been a boon for Kamala Harris and loyal members of the K-Hive, of course, that are buzzing around right now. She's received a lot of endorsements. She officially received the endorsement of Barack Obama a couple of days ago, early in the morning.
Weird that it took a little bit to come, but
yeah, I don't know what he was doing.
There.
She's received a lot of donations, which we'll talk about in a moment, and some pretty positive press attention, even if she's being sort of memeified into the grave right now. I think it's good. But I think the memification's going well.
Dark Brandon worked for Joe. Dark Brandon really worked for Joe, so much so that the White House adopted that framing when it came to their messaging. So
I think the Dark Brandon account was turned into Kamala HQ.
Really?
I think the account just transitioned. Yeah, I think they just switched up because I noticed I was already following it, and I was like, this must just be the Dark Brandon account.
That makes a lot of sense, actually. But either way, like, the memification works, and you know what? Dare I say, memification? That's a good strategy in these modern elections.
Yeah. So let's talk about donations. I have a quote here from Open Secrets. It's an organization that tracks campaign fundraising. It's a pretty reliable source. They said, quote, within 36 hours of Biden's announcement on July 21st, Harris raised more than $100 million, according to her campaign, including $81 million in the first 24 hours. The $100 million cash infusion would more than double the $96 million that the Biden-Harris campaign had in cash on hand at the end of June. The Harris campaign did not say what portion of the $100 million raised came from small versus large donors, but Act Blue, which processes online donations for the campaign, DNC, and other Democratic groups, reported that small donors gave $46.7 million through the platform in the first 7 hours.
That's insane.
Of the Harris candidacy. $46 million in 7 hours in small dollar donations is an absurd amount of money.
That's absolutely nuts. And especially when we consider that's only a fourth, maybe a fifth of the amount of time that it actually took to raise $100 million. Like, I feel like this another signal that this is very much something that the base wanted.
Yeah.
This is very much something that people were excited about.
Yeah, small dollar donations are a good way to measure how much excitement a campaign actually has behind it.
Yeah.
Whereas the large dollar donations or donations that go into their super PACs that are associated with the campaign, those can just come from rich people. You know what I mean? Like Elon Musk pledging to give Donald Trump's super PAC $45 million
every month
doesn't mean that Donald Trump has a bunch of support growing for him. It just means he's getting a fuck ton of money from a billionaire.
Yeah.
Whereas Kamala Harris getting $46 million in 7 hours from small dollar donations, that's an impressive number, and it's record-breaking.
Yes, it brings us to the $81 million in 24 hours that broke, like, fundraising records.
All right, yeah, that's all right. It's just the highest amount raised in that amount of time.
Which is insane considering Trump got shot and didn't raise that much money. The first fucking assassination attempt on a fucking president or former president in 40 goddamn years. Bro got what I thought at the time was the flick of the century.
Yeah.
And he couldn't even raise as much money as Kamala just being the presumptive nominee.
I want to say the number was like 24 million after the Trump assassination attempt. Wasn't that they were saying, like, we raised 24 million, or maybe that was after the felony conviction?
I think so. I know. It was like I thought they were saying it was close to 80 million is what they raised
maybe it was.
after him getting shot in the ear.
Yeah.
But that must have been over time. If Kamala
see what he needs to do to mimic a fraction of our power. Like Kamala Harris had to do nothing, let Joe Biden drop out.
Exactly.
She didn't have to say a word.
She had to push him out the coconut tree, and here we are.
I'm pretty sure she raised all of this money before she had her next public appearance after being the presumptive nominee.
And probably before she even had her branding.
Yes. Like, she said nothing and raised $80 million. And I think that's a good sign that people are excited, and that at least the base is energized, and a good sign that fundraising will hopefully go well for the rest of the campaign.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
And small dollar donations, it's got to.
Yeah.
It's got to.
On the polling front, though, there's still some work to do, but things aren't looking too bad either. I put these polls in yesterday, but since then there have been other polls that have came out that have also suggested Kamala Harris is doing better than Joe Biden was in a number of different states, as well as national approval ratings.
Amazing.
So her approval ratings have been growing, but in the latest New York Times poll, Trump still leads 49-48. Again, that's 1 point margin of error and so on. But that's versus a several point difference between Trump and Biden.
It wasn't
Biden
wasn't it like 46-49?
Yeah,
or something like that with RFK at like 5%.
Yeah,
God damn.
I think actually when you add in RFK, Harris does better compared to Trump.
Amazing.
Because RFK is pulling almost exclusively from the right-wing voting base.
And
you know what I mean?
I can't believe people genuinely thought a couple months ago that RFK was going to successfully pull from so many Democrats. Like, he's a psychopath.
Yeah.
There's not one thing that he's done that hasn't been just strictly right wing.
Yeah. Aggregate polling still paints a pretty bleak picture for Kamala Harris. If you look at 538's aggregate polling on approval ratings, floating around like 40%, just above Joe Biden's. But the latest polling, as I just said, suggests that her approval rating is going up. I've seen as high as like 48% approval rating, which is like the gold standard for politicians. You know what I mean? Like getting close to 50% is really fucking good.
Well, you're killing it, actually.
The New York Times poll that I was looking at showed 46%, also, of course, up from her previous numbers. So it could be that aggregate polling, as it does, will just lag behind. But maybe approval rating going up.
And I mean, even if it stays at its lowest at like 40%, that's still points better than Trump and Biden. Like, That is not the historic low that Trump and Biden have both sat at.
Mm-hmm. And then to speak to what you brought up at the beginning of this episode after the cold open, a shocking 87% of Democratic voters said they approve of Joe Biden's decision to step aside.
Nobody fucks with this guy. They don't fuck with you.
Whereas it was only 8% that said they wanted him to stay in.
Like, they don't fuck with you, Joe. I don't know how else to say it. Biden accomplishments guy on Twitter is just absolutely having the worst week of his life right now.
And it really undercuts the argument that like this was a coup or it was completely undemocratic to quote unquote push Biden out when again he resigns and then a vast majority, a super majority of the base is like, yeah, all right. Cool.
Yeah, okay, sick. This is great. Actually, here, take my money. I'm gonna do a small dollar donation now.
Yeah. It's crazy.
I've never donated, but now I will do a small dollar donation for Kamala Harris.
Kamala Harris also had a number of positive press appearances and speeches over the last week or so, none of which featured major gaffes like Joe Biden had.
What a bar. What a high bar.
Yeah. Now, of course, doesn't mean she's guaranteed to win. In fact, she's still behind in polling in swing states like Georgia and Arizona and Wisconsin and so on. She's got some work to do on that front, but she was just named the candidate a few days ago, and those poll numbers are already looking a lot better.
Crazy.
Presumptive candidate, I should say. The poll numbers are already looking better than they were for Joe Biden, and if this continues, it seems like it might continue to surge.
And it always takes time to build momentum and change things for the better. Yeah. You know what I mean? Polling is going to take probably a while to reflect the fact that she is actually like the candidate.
It's a lagging indicator, yeah.
Exactly. It's not like it's so much easier for polls to shoot down when Biden says we're going to beat Medicare and have an awful performance than it is to get them back up. That's part of the reason why Biden absolutely needed to step down when he did, but
yeah, you know, because age is not something that gets better over time. Like
famously,
you can't improve the age issue, especially when you are incapable of doing a vigorous campaign that you would need to at least assuage some concerns of your age. Whereas Kamala Harris just doesn't have that issue.
Exactly, and
she's 59. Like
speaking on Donald Trump, I can't believe we would let somebody that old come even close to the presidency.
I don't think he's fit for the job.
I don't. I think he needs to do a mental test.
Like he's gonna have to go to sleep at like 9 p.m.
That's what I'm saying. What about his fucking bedtime?
What if the nation gets attacked at 3 a.m? Is he gonna be awake?
Exactly. When the sun goes down, is he capable of functioning?
Yeah.
We don't know. These are the questions that we have to ask, guys. He's 78 years old.
Can he even make it up the steps of Air Force One? I don't think like if Donald Trump gets elected, he will be the oldest person ever inaugurated to the job of president.
You know, if the president is old enough to withdraw Social Security, I don't think they should be in office.
He's too old for he can't do it. He's too old.
It's just,
and you know what? On top of that, RFK Jr. 70 years old. He's also too old for the job.
Both of these candidates can withdraw from Social Security.
We need less old men running the country.
100%. Oh my God. I can't imagine why anyone would think that an old man could run the country.
Do you really want another grandpa in the White House?
And it's like an old man and a felon?
Exactly.
Wrapped in Trump crime family. What's going on, people?
You know, crime's going up in red states across the country.
I damn near forgot that Joe Biden was the president. I can't even lie.
Because who cares? Who cares? We're moving on.
Right, he's on his way out.
Yeah.
He's on his way out. He can fucking do whatever he wants now. I don't give a shit. And just going back to the coup narrative, I thought that it was going to land at least a little bit more with some people, but it seems like there has just been a staunch rejection.
Yeah, nobody cares.
Everybody. Nobody fucks with Joe Biden. They don't. When Democrats post about it, they just get flamed in the comments. When conservatives post about, oh, look at the Democrats, they're hypocrites. They just did a coup. It doesn't get the reception that their other tweets get. Like nobody gives it. Nobody believes the narrative.
Yeah, I did think that from like the right wing angle, I thought more people would care too because like they can say, oh, it looks like Democrats are actually doing the insurrection here, not us. But and it's just like nobody cares. First of all, primary is a party function. Republicans have no say over how Democrats do their party primary because it's the Democratic Party, not the Republican Party. And when damn near 90% of the party's electorate is in favor of the decision, it's hard to say it's undemocratic.
Exactly. And it's like you see the big conservative accounts posting about, you see like the Daily Wires or the Declaration of Memes and the End Wokeness being like, they just did a coup. They just did a coup fucking June or July 14th or whatever the fuck they want to say. But you don't see regular conservatives getting in the comments like, oh my God, I can't believe they fucking did this shit. Well, they're just, oh my God.
The thing that gets me is like, Republicans have been telling Joe Biden to step down since the day he came into office.
Then he did it.
And then he stepped down. He said he's not going to run for re-election. I'm not surprised that they didn't get excited about that because they're never going to give bro his flowers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But they've been saying this for 4 years now, and it surprises me that they didn't have a plan for if Kamala Harris took over the reins.
Like,
they had nothing prepared.
And we'll get into that in a little bit after we talk about some VP stuff, but they have just been floundering the messaging. They cannot figure out how to attack this one.
Why didn't they? But like, why weren't they doing Oppo research for like a year?
I don't know.
You've had people like Ron DeSantis, Nikki Haley, and Vivek saying that Kamala Harris was going to be the nominee.
Yeah.
Like Nikki Haley especially was saying like Joe Biden's not going to make it to November. They're going to plug in Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
And as much as I hate Nikki Haley, she was correct. Why didn't they have Oppo research on her?
Even that, but like even in the 3 weeks before Joe Biden dropped out, or the 2 weeks before Biden dropped out, however long it was, it felt like a year. They had so much time to figure out a coherent messaging plan that they could have distributed to all their fucking party loyalists, their media apparatus, to actually nail her on something. But they couldn't. Yeah. They just said, "Oh, this was a coup," which is a talking point they stole from the Biden accomplishments guy.
And then they were all, like, of course, we'll get into all the arguments about Harris a little bit later on. But the first one they go to is, "Did you know she's black?" But also, she's not black. Like, first of all, you don't care.
I saw. I think Ben Shapiro say like, "Oh, she tries to talk like Obama." Like, all right, brother, we're just comparing the two brown politicians here.
Objectively, she doesn't sound the same as Barack Obama.
Not at all. Yeah. Not the same inflection. Not the same tone. It's not. It's not how that works. It's not how that works, brother. Everyone knows 2024. It's an election year, right? You know what else is an immutable fact? Wednesday weenies always lose to the weekly news cycle.
You're always behind.
This is even more undeniable in 2024. These primary Iowa caucus happening on a Monday. Super Tuesday, that's in the name. Yeah. Wednesday weenie, again, in the name. If you want to get ahead of the news cycle, you need to head on over to patreon.com/headintheofficepod.
Listen, if you want the news when it happens rather than after it happens, consider becoming a patron. It's a good way to support the show, and it's a good way to stay up to date on everything this year as we deal with this tumultuous election season together.
Wear that Head in the Office patron badge on your sleeve. You can run around always. I'm a patron in the office. I get the news when it happens.
Back to the episode.
It's been pretty good. But I mean, while we're on the topic of Kamala Harris, we gotta talk about the DEI white boys.
I was gonna say, let's talk about some real DEI
that she is gonna fucking put in there, because they're getting picked because they're white boys. They just happen to come with some other things. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the VP selection process, it's going strong. And like I said, almost every single candidate that every media outlet is reporting on, there's like 8 of them, is a white guy.
Except for Gretchen Whitmer.
Gretchen
she already
Whitmer's
declined.
thrown in there, but she's not doing it.
She declined.
Everybody else is like a white governor of like a kind of maybe purplish state, swing state, or a senator.
Yep.
It's good.
Yeah.
It's fucking good.
If I could illegally bet on politics, I would put it on a white governor more than a senator. I don't know why. Like we'll talk about Mark Kelly, I'm sure, but I don't know why she would choose Mark Kelly.
I was reading about it last night, and I'm more sympathetic. Well, I don't like the idea that I'll give it away right now. I think that Kelly is kind of a front runner for her pick right now, but my ideal candidate is Andy.
Gotta be.
It's gotta be. Let's just fucking get into it while we're at it. So the top 3 candidates at the moment, from everything that I've read this week, seem to be Andy Beshear, the Kentucky governor, Josh Shapiro, the Pennsylvania governor, and Mark Kelly, an Arizona senator. Last week, the top of the list for most likely was Josh Shapiro. Yep. That's who I thought she was going to pick. It seemed like a shoo-in. Pennsylvania carries a lot of electoral votes. If you're a Democrat, you need Pennsylvania to win.
Yeah.
And you grab the governor who's like pretty moderately popular. You know, like he's a popular governor in one of the most important swing states that Harris needs to win. It seems like a good choice.
Well, and importantly, if Republicans win the typical states that they win, all throughout the middle of the country, and then they win Pennsylvania and Georgia, that's it. I think they get to like 271 at that point. You can't let them get Pennsylvania. Yeah, exactly.
So that alone is a strong case for Shapiro. But God, that guy sucks. And the extent to which he sucks that I've been reading about this week has really changed my opinion on whether or not he would be a viable or just smart pick for Kamala Harris in general. And it gets pretty bad, but he's a popular governor. He's got the 8th highest approval rating out of all the governors in the fucking country, and he has a strong reputation for like getting things done despite Pennsylvania's split legislature. Big, huge, fucking bipartisan, reach across the aisle guy. And ultimately, it seems like it'd play as a strength when you first read it. I think that's kind of his biggest downfall. He, like I said, he sucks. He's been under fire for his support for like school vouchers and charter schools, which is horrible. And it's bad to not only support to just support those things. It's bad to put your political weight behind that. It's a whole other thing when the teachers' unions are coming out against you, and the teachers' unions are talking to Kamala saying they don't want this guy.
Yeah, big teacher.
Literally big teacher is saying that they don't want him, and that alone is kind of disqualifying.
Yeah.
Unions put on a massive amount of pressure to candidates when it comes to things like this. Like you have to consider what they're saying, and he's not popular with them. I don't know. That's kind of a disqualifying factor right there. It's not totally disqualifying, but it's just one of those things that he's bad on. Another thing is he's okay with fracking, but in Pennsylvania, you have to be okay with fracking.
Yeah, for reasons we've talked about.
Talked about. It's a complicated electorate. It's massive industry there.
Yeah,
you kind of have to be okay with it.
Pennsylvanians yearn for the fracking industry the same way that like people in Michigan
coal mines
yearn for the auto manufacturing industry to come back. Like it has cultural staying power. It was a major reason for the state's economic growth previously, and since outsourcing austerity, Ronald Reagan, a lot of the jobs have left.
Yeah, so there are complicated reasons why you have to be like fracking adjacent if you're a politician in Pennsylvania. We talked about this when we talked about Fetterman back when he was cool and not objectively awful. But while we're talking about Fetterman and his kind of switch to being awful, one of the hallmarks of that switch was his stance on Israel. And that's kind of the big point of contention for me when it comes to Josh Shapiro. The teachers union thing and being pro-charter school and school vouchers is bad in of itself, and that's something that could really sink his VP hopefulness. But he is a just staunch supporter of Israel. He declared himself Israel's champion in Pennsylvania, and he cracked down hard on pro-Palestinian college protests all across Pennsylvania. He has been one of the leading governors in doing bad things when it comes to cracking down on protests, making bad statements about Palestinian protesters.
Yeah.
He went on to CNN and compared pro-Palestinian protesters to the KKK.
Oh my God.
He said, oh, well, if you see people adorned in these white robes in the KKK, you wouldn't let that happen now, would you? Talking about people in keffiyehs.
A lot of Republicans actually would. They would stand on their free speech.
A lot of Republicans would say it's cool.
Yeah.
They're just expressing it. I do recall when people showed up in khakis and tiki torches in Charlottesville and did a couple things, and people were okay with that. But I digress. He's done that. So he routinely conflates criticisms of Israel with anti-Semitism in general. And that's not good.
It's bad, especially when we're talking about Gen Z and millennials who were put off of Joe Biden, maybe because of Israel Gaza, maybe just because they were depressed by him.
Yes.
And then you bring in a guy who is sort of identical to Joe Biden on the Israel thing, who is actively challenging Fetterman for strongest champion of Israel in Pennsylvania.
And it's literally actively
challenging him for the
Fetterman,
title.
Strongest Israel champion in D.C. Shapiro, strongest Israel champion in Pennsylvania. Both of them from that state. It's not looking good for you.
And you know who else is from Pennsylvania?
Oh,
Bibi Netanyahu.
Oh, the Pole from Pennsylvania, who's now the Prime Minister of Israel. It's ridiculous out here. You know what I'm saying? But electorally speaking, I don't. It's hard to kind of gauge how Shapiro being pro-Palestinian could maybe hurt Harris's campaign, considering that Mark Kelly is also very pro-Israel.
Yes.
Sorry, excuse me. Shapiro is pro-Israel. Mark Kelly is also very pro-Israel. Andy Beshear has signaled that he's pro-Israel, although neither of them have gone through the lengths that Shapiro has gone to declare themselves the champion and actually crack down and do bad things rather than just saying bad things. A meaningful difference. You know what I mean? All that aside, Shapiro has been pinned as the pro-Israel guy in the VP race. That is all of the articles are talking about when it comes to Josh Shapiro. They're talking about how he's Pennsylvania governor, they need Pennsylvania, and this guy loves Israel. Where that kind of comes into play, while Josh Shapiro could reasonably lock down Pennsylvania for Kamala Harris and obviously help in the Electoral College, his pro-Israel stances, uncommitted, kind of did show out in the Michigan primary.
Yeah, 100,000 votes, yeah.
When you take the guy that is being pinned as the pro-Israel guy, and when you're Kamala Harris, who's trying to kind of distance herself from Biden's just unfettered Zionism, there's a weird mix there. And I feel like if she were to pick Shapiro, she runs the risk of alienating potential voters in Michigan.
And I feel like she doesn't need Shapiro to win Pennsylvania.
I don't either.
You know what I mean? Like, Shapiro wasn't on Biden's ticket and he won Pennsylvania.
Yeah, like it's one thing to just like lock it down, right? But is it good enough to lock it down when you could risk alienating voters in Michigan?
Right.
There's also the fact Michigan has the highest Muslim American population in the country. Pennsylvania has the second, and they're also not happy with him there.
Yeah.
I don't even know if Josh Shapiro, like, there are so many risks that come with him. You have the teachers union not fucking with him. You have people in general not liking him. Very much a centrist, bipartisan guy, which sure that plays well for some swing voters, but it's not going to necessarily inspire turnout. And you risk hurting your chances in Michigan. I don't think anyone can say definitively whether or not the Israel stance is what's going to make or break Michigan based on that vote, but like, it's something to consider.
Yeah, and the conventional wisdom when it comes to VPs would say that you want to balance out the person at the top of the ticket with either a more moderate or a more progressive choice. So like for Kamala Harris, or let's say for Barack Obama, he was seen as the more progressive, whether that was fair or not. You know, he's seen as a radical black man. He chose Joe Biden, someone who is known, an establishment guy, very moderate. Conventional wisdom would say Kamala Harris should choose a more moderate guy, so you'd think someone like Mark Kelly or Josh Shapiro fits the bill. But I don't think anybody in the running, say like Andy Beshear or Tim Walz, is necessarily like super progressive. Tim Walz maybe, because he is doing communism in Minnesota right now.
This is true.
But like, I don't think Tim Walz is like seen as a guy that's like super progressive and would like destroy the country. You know what I mean? But if they really want to go like the moderate route to balance out Kamala Harris, who may be painted or understood or perceived as a progressive, I would understand a Mark Kelly choice. Although again, I would prefer Andy Beshear. I think
I would absolutely prefer Andy Beshear. And just with Josh Shapiro, there are those risks that I mentioned, and I think Mark Kelly just does everything that Josh Shapiro could do, but better.
Yeah.
And kind of the same risks associated with it. Like, okay, you get Josh Shapiro on your ticket, you lose PA governor, whatever, lieutenant governor steps up. It's fine. You still have a Democrat. With Mark Kelly, I know part of the issue is if she picks Mark Kelly for VP, and if they win in November, in 2026, there's a special election in Arizona. So
you could lose that Senate seat.
You could lose that Senate seat that they might need.
You know, one of the attacks on J.D. Vance is that he's only been in the Senate for 2 years.
Yeah.
That's the same thing with Mark Kelly. They were elected the same year.
I get he's been in the Senate for 4 years, but like, he won a special election in 2020 when John McCain died.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he won a special election in 2020, which that's part of the reason why he's really in the race, because Mark Kelly wasn't somebody who was on my radar really at all.
Yeah.
I thought it was, but looking into it, I'm seeing the logic more, and I wouldn't be surprised if he was the pick. Maybe I'd even go as far as to say that my money could be on Mark Kelly, because he has a proven track record in Arizona, which is a battleground state and hard to win for Democrats. He won by a larger margin in both 2020 than Biden and in 2022 than Katie Hobbs. So he not only is he just a popular person in Arizona, he's a popular Democrat who has proven that he can bring voters for himself. Like, he can turn out voters more so than Biden could. Say what you will about Biden. In 2022, people were, I guess, more excited, and than Katie Hobbs could in 2022.
And he's an astronaut. That's cool.
And that's a factor that we can't deny.
Yeah, and we also got to keep in mind that, like, when we're talking about her VP pick, we are purely talking politics. Like, it's pure optics, because the beliefs of the VP literally doesn't matter.
No. In the sense of Mark Kelly, I think they matter in a little bit, because Mark Kelly, being an Arizona senator, he also kind of sucks in the same way that Shapiro
he was against
sucks.
the PRO Act. Yeah,
he was against the PRO Act
until like a week ago.
Has got him in trouble with labor unions. Another thing that she needs to consider when she's figuring out who to pick for. A week ago, he said, "No, I actually support it. I didn't co-sponsor it, but I support it." Really?
Yeah, he switched up because he knows he's in the running.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, Mister. Whatever. But he's very much a centrist, and he runs on being a centrist guy. And with that, he sucks, right? Yeah. But the one position he has that I think is kind of pushing him over the finish line is that Unfortunately, he is very anti-immigration. He is one of the most anti-immigrant Democrats. He cracks down hard on it. In the Senate, he doesn't vote with the party. That's what he bucks with them on that. And Harris overall has signaled that she's not willing to change the tune when it comes to Biden's immigration policy.
Yeah.
And from what I've been seeing this week, from the ads that I've been seeing on YouTube all over the place, I think the border is what conservatives are eventually going to latch onto if they have not already when it comes to attacking her.
Well, because the border's been the number one issue for 11 months?
Exactly.
At this point?
For 11 months, the border's been the number one issue in Iowa.
Yeah, for no reason.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's no empirical basis for it, especially because I think numbers just came out from the Border Patrol or ICE or whatever that border crossings are lower than they were at any point under the Trump administration right now.
Oh, interesting. Funny how nobody is yapping about that.
Yeah, the border crossings are lower now, partially because of things that Joe Biden has done via executive orders and stuff. If it's a salient issue, Democrats are going to be bad on it. The reason I said vice presidents don't matter, their policy positions don't matter, is because once they get into the job, they don't do anything. You know what I mean?
They have no influence on the. It's the same reason why policy doesn't matter when we're considering the race. The policy prescriptions of the vice president don't fucking matter for the same reason that policy doesn't matter. Because when we consider the general electorate, they're just voting based on vibes. And I think Mark Kelly brings a general anti-immigration vibe to the Harris campaign that could motivate a swing voter to come over. The swing voter in Iowa who fucking hates immigrants. You know what I mean?
If she ends up choosing Josh Shapiro, I think it'll end up being a bad look in a lot of ways. But I want people listening to know that his stances on Israel, I don't think will matter in terms of the policy towards Israel.
Yes.
What will matter is what Kamala Harris wants to do.
That's a very important distinction to make. None of these people's policy prescriptions matter.
It's a vibes-based DEI pick.
Exactly. They only matter insofar as they can insulate her from negative attacks.
Yes.
And I think picking Kelly as a VP would help to insulate her from the border czar narrative, because that's what I've seen conservatives talk about. Conservatives say Kamala Harris was the border czar. She's overseen X fucking trillion immigrants come over the border and distribute fentanyl to JD Vance's mom. And I'm not joking about some woman's drug addiction. JD Vance lied.
Yes,
he lied. He went on Twitter last week, or there was an ad that he ran. I can't remember when.
We talked about it last week. He ran an ad when he was running in 2022 where he said his mom almost died of an overdose because of all the fentanyl streaming over the border.
Yes.
But the actual truth is that, and he wrote this in his book, that his mom would steal drugs from the hospital that she worked at.
That shit got community noted.
Yes.
He lied about his own mother's drug addiction to try to pin it on immigrants coming across the border. You can't make this shit up. And Americans go crazy for that shit. The mind of the median voter is a mysterious and dark thing that I frankly never want to step into. But for that reason, I do think Kelly's kind of at the front of this. He helps insulate her from that issue. But
how unfortunate.
My ideal candidate is Andy Beshear, and I think if she maybe thought it through a little bit more, she would see that he's just the good. He's the best pick here.
He's the best pick.
He's the good guy. Yeah. He's great, right?
He's incredibly white.
He's so fucking
His family is incredibly white.
He just skin color aside, he looks white. He oozes white. You know what I mean? He damn near shines.
He's got a southern accent. It's good.
He's got
aesthetics.
Twang.
Yes.
Bring a little bit of twang to the ticket. Why not? You know what I'm saying?
And he's the strongest defender of trans people in the state of Kentucky.
Andy Beshear single-handedly, he vetoed SB 150, the huge anti-trans thing. The essence of Andy Beshear is he is a Democrat who won in a deep red state.
Twice.
Wildly popular.
Yeah.
He is a wildly popular figure within Kentucky. People fucking love him.
Mitch McConnell, Kentucky.
Mitch McConnell Rand Paul, Kentucky.
Yes.
I don't understand how those two things can exist. Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul, Kentucky, massively red state legislature, Kentucky. Andy Beshear shines in there. People fucking love him. And he stands firmly against the things that every conservative in the state wants. He stood firmly against fucking anti-trans legislation. He stood against abortion bans. He's damn near democracy's last defender in the state.
He's a big public schools guy.
Huge public schools guy.
Yeah.
Stands in opposition to Josh Shapiro.
Yes, yeah.
Teachers unions gotta love this guy. He goes around and he He's got like small town charisma. He walks around and he actually goes and talks to his constituents, and that's the biggest thing that people in Kentucky talk about, is that he'll go and he'll deliver these checks and he'll talk to people, and he's an incredibly personable dude. And what would be wrong with that on a ticket?
And I think he's like 6'3".
Yes.
Tower over J.D. Vance on a debate stage.
Tower over J.D. Vance, and he's also just a foil to J.D. Vance.
Yeah.
J.D. Vance fucking lies about being from Appalachia.
Yeah.
This dude presides over it. He governs Appalachia.
Andy Beshear, he went on, I think it was just some talk show, like pretty shortly after J.D. Vance was named, and he said, like, yeah, J.D. Vance isn't from here. Like, he basically
he got down there. He said, they not like us.
Yeah.
They not like us. He said, was it a CNN? Thing or something
like that. You some talk show, yeah.
He went on some talk show and he said, yeah, he's not from here. And actually, he talks shit about people who are from here that I govern and are actually pretty great. Those are my constituents, J.D. Vance. Like, he's riding for people. And wow, that's what makes him good. There is an electoral reality that Trump won the state in 2020 by 26 points. That's a lot. That is a lot. And there's a discussion that needs to be had about whether or not it's just Andy. Democratic policies probably are not broadly popular in Kentucky. Andy Beshear, however you fuck you say it,
I think,
Beshear is popular in Kentucky. The question is whether or not he can kind of bridge that gap for Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that he could bridge a 26-point gap.
We're not winning Kentucky.
I don't think we're winning Kentucky. I think it would be asinine to expect that. However, I think his record... One of the main reasons he's popular in Kentucky is because he responded just phenomenally to like 2 natural disasters that hit the state. People fucking love him for that shit. He did a great job.
Yeah.
I think he can go around and he has this small town appeal and charisma. He's just a fucking dude, right?
Yeah.
Who's done good things. And he can move swing voters across the country over. The question naturally is whether or not he can move enough swing voters in key states to actually win them. And I think he probably could.
Yeah, and the other thing is that, like, you know, people that aren't as tuned into politics, if they live in Pennsylvania, they don't know Mark Kelly.
Yes.
They don't know Andy Beshear. If people live in Kentucky, they don't know Josh Shapiro. Like, what we're talking about right now is not really a conversation that the average median voter is having right now. I think it's just a matter of once you get them out there, making sure the vibes are right, because it's a vibes thing. You know what I mean?
I don't think the vibes could be right for Shapiro. I really don't.
No.
He kind of sucks. I think Kelly and Beshear are infinitely more charismatic. As much as, again, I think Mark Kelly sucks, but he's a fucking astronaut.
That's cool.
He's an astronaut and a veteran, so he can shit on J.D. Vance in that front. J.D. Vance is also a veteran. You put Mark Kelly on the ticket, you invalidate J.D. Vance in that aspect. And also, Mark Kelly's he's got this like blue collar guy kind of vibe to him that J.D. Vance does not have. So you put those two on a fucking debate stage, right? And he'll dog walk him.
Mark Kelly's like a bald, beefy guy.
Exactly.
Right? Like he looks like he'd come and like fix your plumbing.
And J.D. Vance looks like a politician.
A Silicon Valley millionaire. Yeah, exactly.
Which is precisely what he is.
A Yale graduate.
Mark Kelly is an astronaut who owns a space company. he could dog walk J.D. Vance on the debate stage, but Andy Beshear is his fucking J.D. Vance's foil. Absolutely. And that's the matchup.
They're literary opposites.
Yeah. Literally.
Yeah.
Could not be more different, right? Oh my God. And that's the matchup I need to see.
Yeah.
And that's a matchup I'm really hoping for. There's a tweet that he put out, I want to say like yesterday or like on Friday, that was like, no matter what happens, I'm always going to be a Kentucky and I'm always going to be something like that. I'll have always represented you. And on the Majority Report, they were thinking that that's kind of signaling that he might be the pick. That he's kind of been speaking in a way that's like, no matter what happens, win or lose in this national race, I'll always be a Kentucky and I'll always be from here. I'll always represent you. I
guess we'll see, man. I don't know. We're not going to learn until like the end of August, but it's only like 3 weeks away at this point, the convention.
Yeah, which I mean, rightfully so, because I think it's absolutely beneficial for them to keep the news cycle up because so many articles are being pumped out about these people. You know what I mean? Good and bad.
Just as we thought they would be.
Just as we thought they would be. The 24-hour news cycle is cycling.
Yeah.
And it's not cycling in Trump's favor. The only stories I've heard about Trump are the shit that he said this week about Christians vote for me and you'll never have to vote again.
Yep.
Crazy thing to say, right?
And then he said, I'm not a Christian, but I need you to vote for me, and then we'll have it all set.
Which is like, Why are we saying that?
Yeah.
He's going to get on here and say, I'm not a Christian, and then pick J.D. Vance.
Maybe he's genuinely freaking. I'm telling you, Trump's too old for the job.
I think so. He doesn't know what he's doing, and the people around him don't seem to know what they're doing. As we'll get into, J.D. Vance is fumbling the bag.
Yeah, J.D. Vance is fumbling. I think that's a good segue into what the right wing has been doing this past week. Republicans have been in something of a mad dash to find attacks that work on Kamala Harris. Last week, we saw Republicans attacking her laughing by just playing like back-to-back clips of her laughing on Sean Hannity's show.
Compilations of her engaging in joy.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like her laugh's not like crazy, you know? It's a regular laugh.
It's also crazy. And one of the things that tells me that Trump has absolutely lost the sauce is that he's calling her laughing Kamala. You can't even throw a cackling Kamala in there.
If you can't have fun in politics, you're not going to get voters.
That's what I'm saying.
You got to be able to have fun.
One, you're attacking someone for being joyous, in engaging in whimsy, and two, you can't even make it catchy. You can't even say cackling Kamala. You got to say laughing Kamala. Yeah. He lost the plot.
Yeah, yeah. Some conservatives online have said that Kamala Harris isn't black because she is half Jamaican and half Indian, I think, was that her mom was Indian.
Absolutely rich for them to say.
As if that's something they care about. Also, Jamaicans aren't black now?
Exactly. The whitest men in the country going up to black women and asking for their black card. I don't know if that's a look that we can win nationally on, people.
Very bizarre. Very, very bizarre. A lot of people on the timeline this past week were saying that she slept her way to the top.
Oh.
I don't think there's any evidence to this. She dated a guy named Willie Brown, who I think was the mayor of San Francisco before she became the DA. But importantly, DA is a job you got to be elected for.
Yeah.
And then everything after that, attorney general in California, she was elected for. Senator in California, she was elected for. Vice president of the United States, she was elected for. It's hard to argue that she could have, like, fucked that many people.
Exactly. And I know it wasn't Joe Biden.
Yeah. So I don't really, I think it's just misogyny.
It has to be.
What I mean?
Woman in power.
Yeah.
You think, oh, how could this person have got there? I don't like them, so people couldn't like them.
Yeah.
They must have slept their way to the top. They must have got it by illicit means.
Yeah. And then, of course, we saw the argument that she was simply a DEI hire, meaning that she is not qualified for the job. That one was pretty pervasive as well. Some elected Republicans were saying that one,
man,
as we'll get to in a moment. So we got this past week joyous laughter, racism, misogyny, and then more racism. That was kind of the whole of their attacks against her.
Nice. And, you know, I can't imagine that's playing well for a swing voter. I really can't. You know what I mean? As racist as this country is, people don't like to be sort of like
that
explicitly racist.
Yeah.
And people don't like to engage in racist behaviors that they reasonably perceive they could be called out on for. You know what I mean? If people are engaging in something where it's like, this feels like somebody could cancel me over, they're not going to want to do it. They're going to be averse to that. I think that's firmly in the mind of a swing voter.
Yeah, in fact, these attacks from the right wing on Kamala Harris got so racist and so sexist last week that Republican leadership in the House had to beg their members to stop bringing up race and gender.
Nice.
I can't express how bad it's gotten if Mike Johnson is the voice of reason.
It's like conservatives see that in 2020, Joe Biden won because of black voters and suburban white women. And they said, let's alienate both of those demographics.
Well, and I have a quote from the article here. It says, quote, Rep. Tim Burchett said Monday that Harris was a DEI vice president.
Nice.
And Glenn Grothman over the weekend questioned if Democrats are sticking by her because of her ethnic background. And then later on in the article, quote, one House Republican granted anonymity to speak candidly said Republicans who made comments about Harris being a DEI pig need to stop.
Hell yeah.
They're just like, their own members are like, dog, chill, we're going to lose.
Which is also funny that, like, there's a conservative culture out there to where conservative members who are uncomfortable with their fellow caucus members being just explicitly racist and misogynistic have to challenge that under anonymity, and they can't just come out there and say that with their name attached.
Yeah, that's good.
They can't say we have to stop being racist. They have to quietly say we need to stop being racist, and they don't want that statement tied to them.
So as we predicted, the right can't help themselves but be racist. It's going to take a Herculean effort to get them to stop, to not say the N-word by November. We'll see if they're able to do it, though. I think the most salient attacks on her will be she's a California Marxist, because they're already hitting her with that, like she was super liberal in San Francisco.
Is that even... does the Marxist thing even land?
I don't. They probably aren't saying Marxist specifically, but they're calling her a progressive. She did have a progressive voting record the short time that she was in the Senate. Of course, she was DA of San Francisco, or a DA in San Francisco. San Francisco, very liberal city in the United States. So they're going to hit her with she's a California liberal.
California homelessness and whatnot.
And I think California at this point, deservedly or not, does have a sort of failed state perception.
Yeah.
Even though, like, I know a lot of it's exaggerated by the right just to make Democrats look bad. But I think a lot of people, when they think of California, if they don't live in California or if they are, in the middle or right leaning, they'll probably think like, oh, she's too far left. Mm-hmm. So I do think that's going to be a message she's got to work against.
And that's why the future of the progressive movement is here in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's why progressivism.
Yeah. Thank God she's from California, because that means Gavin Newsom cannot be the VP.
Yes.
Thank the fucking Lord above. And then I think the other most salient argument will be that she's a member of the Biden administration. But given how many people have kind of just forgotten about Joe Biden at this point, I don't know how much that's going to matter.
Yeah, we don't have a president in my book right now. He's just doing his thing.
Yeah, I don't know how many people, like, they're going to try to say, you covered up his mental decline over the past several years. They're going to say you were a part of him having open borders and stuff like that. But I don't know if people are really going to care, because she can just say, well, you're running against me, not Joe Biden. So I don't know how salient that's going to be.
That's the thing. It's like, I think immigration is going to be something they're absolutely going to try to nail her on, as the borders are. But also, it's like, she does have the opportunity to distance herself from Biden's policy perception, although she doesn't want to distance herself from Biden's policies.
Yeah.
And with that, considering that the bipartisan immigration deal was just born out of Trump's mind and died because Trump didn't want to give Biden a perceived win, I think Kamala, there's an opportunity for her to continue to run with that awful abhorrent bill that I do not fuck with, mind you, and kind of reframe the narrative that this is a good thing that she's doing, because it's not attached to the negative press Joe Biden got.
Yeah. And they'll try to, like you said earlier, like the borders are stuff.
Yeah.
They'll say she was the borders are. First of all, she was never in control of the border. She was just like, she was placed in charge of like visiting different Latin American leaders, like people.
Do not come.
President of Mexico, she met with, I think, like Guatemala, Nicaragua, and so on. She was never in charge of like shutting the border down. But yeah, she had the "do not come" remarks to Guatemalans.
Borders isn't an official position.
It's not. It's something the press came up with.
Yeah, it's just something they said, and I don't even think people who aren't politics heads would have even heard that before. Yeah. So it's really hard to say what's going to land. Mm-hmm. And like you said in the beginning, I'm surprised they didn't have a plan for this. Mm-hmm. This episode of Head in the Office is brought to you by headintheoffice.com. Mm-hmm.
If you head over to headintheoffice.com, you can support the show by getting in on our brand new merch drop.
And it's a pretty good merch drop, people.
We've got shirts available. We've got hats available. We got all kinds of stuff you can buy. And if you want to support the show and, more importantly, rep the show, you can head over to headintheoffice.com and purchase some merch.
Go for it. We got dad caps that are green like money. We got stickers. We got magnets. We got basically anything you could possibly want.
And if you don't get in, I'll be upset.
Me too.
Back to the episode. Now, to end off our coverage on the right wing this week, I think we should check in with J.D. Vance.
Exactly. We've talked a lot about VPs. Yeah. We can't just speculate. We got to talk about the guy who received the nomination.
The confirmed
VP. Vice president for Donald Trump.
So our favorite Appalachian Silicon Valley tech millionaire, J.D. Vance, has been having some trouble this week. He's run into a couple of issues. Some of these narratives are just not good for him, and I think we should run through the most prominent ones about J.D. Vance this past week. So the first one, he fucked a couch.
Gas.
Or at least that's what the internet says. The source for this was a shitpost tweet basically saying that he wrote in Hillbilly Elegy that he fucked a couch. He didn't write that in Hillbilly Elegy, but people think that he did, and they've ran with it. And all I'm going to say is, truth is perception.
Perception is reality in the same way that nobody cares about policy. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like, these things are cut from the same cloth.
Exactly.
Like, it's just true.
Yeah, that's kind of a thing that's stuck. I don't know if that's hit like the mainstream in any way, but lots of people have been saying that, and I found it very funny.
Good.
In some actual news, though, he has been remarkably uncharismatic on the campaign trail. He had a really tough performance during an Ohio rally last week where he had this to say.
Oh, my
I figure
goodness,
we
man.
will take a listen.
It's such a good clip.
Yeah.
Such a good clip.
Let's take a listen to what our boy J.D. Vance has been cooking.
This is pure charisma here.
Keep in mind, he was in his hometown here. This is a hometown performance.
In his hometown, in the state that he is a senator of.
This is homecoming.
He was elected here.
Yeah.
It is the weirdest thing to me. Democrats say that it is racist to believe, well, they say it's racist to do anything. I had a Diet Mountain Dew yesterday and one today. I'm sure they're going to call that racist too, but it's good.
God.
I love you guys. But
It's such a tough watch.
I had a Diet Mountain Dew. I'm sure they're gonna call that racist too.
How about you try to cancel me? Just try and cancel me.
Go ahead. Am I racist for drinking this beverage? Huh? Woke mob. Why don't you try to get me for this one?
To clarify, he was talking about voter ID before that. But he just like kind of went off on a tangent about Mountain Dew being called racist.
Oh, so if voter ID's racist, what about this Diet Mountain Dew I had last week? Huh? I'm so relatable, guys.
It feels like a conservative making fun of themselves.
Yeah.
Because like nobody says that.
Bad SNL parody.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
Bad parody that would be too on the nose.
And now lastly, JD Vance has had a number of very bad positions and statements resurface this past week from his campaign for the 2022 Senate race in Ohio. A 2021 clip of him on Fox News just came back, and he had something to say about people that don't have any kids.
Oh.
And I figured we could roll the clip and take a listen to this. It's about 45 seconds or so. He was on Tucker Carlson's show back when Tucker had a show.
Yeah, before he got fired.
Let's hear what JD Vance has to say. If you are of age to have kids, or even if you're married, have kids, JD Vance has some words for you.
Yeah, he does. Okay.
what I was basically saying is that we're effectively run in this country via the Democrats, via our corporate oligarchs, by a bunch of childless cat ladies who are miserable at their own lives and the choices that they've made, and so they want to make the rest of the country miserable too. And it's just a basic fact. You look at Kamala Harris, Pete Buttigieg, AOC, the entire future of the Democrats is controlled by people without children. And how does it make any sense that we've turned our country over to people who don't really have a direct stake in it? I just wanted to ask that question and propose that maybe if we want a healthy ruling class in this country, we should invest more, we should vote more, we should support more people who actually have kids, because those are the people who ultimately have a more direct stake in the future of this country.
Yeah, so he sort of gives it away at the end.
If we want a healthy ruling class, okay, I see where we're going.
That's the thing JD Vance has repeated before. He was on some other like right-wing Federalist Society podcast type shit, and he was talking about having a better ruling class.
Nice, excellent.
It's like you don't have any critique of power. You just want your guys to be in power. And I want to note a couple of things there. First of all, Kamala Harris has stepkids.
Yeah,
she doesn't have children of her own, but she is a stepmother.
Well, that's immoral.
AOC, of course, doesn't have kids, but she's not in charge of the government.
And she's pretty young,
too,
isn't she?
Pete Buttigieg, he does have kids now. At the time, he didn't. He has twin sons, I think. But also, if he did have kids, they would say that's like a destruction of the traditional family structure because he's a gay man.
Exactly. That's what they did say when he adopted kids,
exactly.
actually. They attacked him and his husband.
Which is just kind of saying, like, gay people shouldn't be in positions of power, like, at all, because they destroy the West or whatever. But the thing I take away from all of this is, like, is JD Vance making the argument that step-parents aren't real parents?
Damn, they're that's the father that stepped up.
Exactly.
JD, what are we talking about
like,
now?
because Kamala Harris' stepmother, is she not a real mom because she's a stepmother? Like, what are we doing?
I don't know. And it's also, I find this, one, step-parents completely normalized throughout society.
Should be.
And should be for good reason. Very weird to come at that. And two, just in general, even without the step-parent angle, I find it hard to see if this, I find it hard to believe that this message would resonate with wide swaths of people. Because, like, nobody talks like this.
Yeah.
Nobody
Especially with, like, again,
this.
like those suburban white women that Trump needs to win. I can't see them hearing a clip like that and thinking, like, oh, yeah, I'm excited to vote.
Exactly. I'm sure they call their kids gremlins.
That's crazy. And the last thing I want to say on this clip is, like, the right wing makes starting a family sound so fucking weird.
It's cultish.
They talk about it like this moral obligation rather than something you do out of, like, I don't know, excitement, love, a desire to form a family with somebody that you care about.
And no wonder so many of them are shitty parents. You know, maybe this is anecdotal, but how often do you hear about a conservative kid talking about being estranged from their parents?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think most often you hear about conservative parents who are unwilling to accept their children because maybe they're part of the LGBTQ, they're queer in some way, shape, or form, or they have X beliefs that the conservative parent can't shut the fuck up about. I don't think you ever really hear about liberal parents disowning conservative children.
Yeah.
I don't think that's not really as culturally pervasive. I think we should think about that when we think about who is pushing the fact that you need to have a family or else you're immoral. You need to have kids. You need to have kids when you're young and get married when you're young and stay
And they got to be
here.
biological.
And they have to be biological kids, very
weird.
importantly.
Really weird.
Even though we love to talk about adoption when it's in the context of taking away women's rights to choose.
Now, in a similar vein, in a 2021 speech at some right-wing conference where Vance was speaking, he said, quote, "Let's give votes to all children in this country, but let's give control over those votes to the parents of those children. When you go to the polls in this country as a parent, you should have more power. You should have more of an ability to speak your voice in our democratic republic than people who don't have kids. Let's face the consequences and the reality. If you don't have as much of an investment in the future of this country, maybe you shouldn't get nearly the same voice."
You know,
Strictly undemocratic, and also I will just note as like an empirical point, people with kids use far more citizen taxpayer money that goes into the government than people without kids.
Yeah.
They use public schools.
far more of a
People
drain.
without kids pay taxes that pay for public schools. Like, I just don't know what we're talking
I,
about.
as someone without kids, get less for my tax dollars than someone with kids does.
And I'm okay with that. I want kids to be educated.
And it's chill. It's
Yeah.
chill with me. And this is just so, it's like he's like, yeah, you know, there are a lot of parents in this country. Maybe I should adopt a pro-parent platform if I want to do something. What would be pro-parent? Parents, you can vote based on how many kids you fucking popped out. And also, you're not a parent unless it's yours biologically. And if you're not a parent, you shouldn't run the government.
You also got to be white.
You also got to be white
For that
too.
to count, yeah.
But like, I just don't. I feel like this doesn't even land with parents.
It's weird. Again, they're really... J.D. Vance is a weird fucking guy.
And it's like there's very much an established reason why kids don't have votes. Like there's very much a reason why you have to wait till you're a certain age to be able to participate. You know what I mean? And just because you have kids doesn't necessarily mean you're more invested in the near future of this country.
Yeah, and this has kind of been this is a part of a broader effort that the right wing's been trying to do for a while to paint Democrats as like anti-natalists, right? Like they don't want you to have children. Empirically, of course, untrue. Democrats are in favor of the child tax credit, which is just a subsidy for having kids, basically, which I'm perfectly fine with because it cut child poverty in half overnight. Anyways, the right wing is definitely going to try to and have already started pushing this against Kamala Harris, saying that like she's pro-death or whatever.
Nice.
It doesn't make sense. Kamala Harris has kids. She's a stepmom. She doesn't have kids of her own, but why should that matter to you at all?
I don't know. And it's also just so weirdly homophobic. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like this all stems from just homophobia and being like, no, you have to have a traditional family if you want to be able to have a say in anything.
Yeah.
Kind of silly.
I would guess that like what, maybe a third of the country is like or has like a patchwork family in some way.
Probably.
You know what I mean? Like I would guess like a third of people have like a stepfather or are a stepfather or something like that.
What isn't it? Like 50% of people of marriages end in divorce?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, most people don't have a traditional family structure.
Yeah.
Damn near 50%.
Yeah. The last thing I wanted to just mention was that an audio clip of J.D. Vance leaked calling for a federal response to stop people from traveling out of the red states for abortions. He specifically brought up that Ohio could pass an abortion law restricting it to like a heartbeat bill type thing.
Yeah.
And people could travel to Michigan, for example, to get an abortion, and he wanted to stop that. But what he specifically said was that you could imagine George Soros loading up droves of black women to go get abortions.
Oh my God. It's so much worse than what I would have thought, actually.
Like anti-Semitic and like why, like weirdly racist, because like why are you invoking black women specifically?
Yeah, and I was already just like thinking like, oh yeah, that's it. One, you just can't do that. Interstate commerce and whatnot regulated by the federal government. You can't pass laws like that.
Yeah.
And also I was like, yeah, that's just an insane thing to think. Never would I have thought. The right wingers find ways to weave George Soros into every conversation in the most creative ways, I swear.
It's because he's like the one Jewish billionaire that's not on their side. It's like the one that they can think of, you know what I mean? Yeah, because I think, isn't the Koch a brother? Isn't he Jewish, but he's like a Republican donor?
I wouldn't.
It's like it doesn't matter to me because I don't keep track of who's fucking Jewish in my
Oh
mind.
my God,
I don't care.
no, literally. It's like when we posted that tweet about the Statue of Liberty, right? And then a billion Nazis came into our comments like, well, did you know that the poem in the Statue of Liberty was actually written by a Jew? No, I didn't know that.
I don't care.
I'm not a psychopath.
Because like they could, I feel like Jeff Bezos has more like cultural staying power right now.
Yeah.
And he's like a Democratic quote unquote billionaire.
Exactly.
You know?
He pretends to be.
He donates to like liberal causes and stuff like that. Why not say Jeff Bezos? Why has it got to be George Soros? Jeff Bezos isn't
George
Jewish.
Soros and black women. That's insane. That's an insane combo.
Yeah. That ends off our rants about the right wing this week and their contributions to the discourse. I'll say the last thing we have to talk about this week is some geopolitical news that has come home to roost.
Yeah, literally come home.
Yeah, come home. I wonder if he visited his home state. We're talking about Netanyahu, people. Last week, congressional leaders on both sides of the aisle demonstrated their stalwart support for genocide by hosting Bibi Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, of course, and allowing him to address a joint session of Congress.
While he has been deemed a criminal by the ICC.
Yeah. The ICC said he was a war criminal. What's his name? John Kirby? I think the national security guy that we fucking hate so much.
John Kirby.
John Kirby did a press conference maybe a day after Netanyahu was here, and someone was like, why do we have an ICC labeled war criminal here?
Oh, great question.
And John Kirby was like, oh, we don't think he's a war criminal.
We actually don't believe in the judgment. We've separated ourselves from this court.
Netanyahu, during his speech, did exactly what you would expect him to do. He said, Israel's fight is your fight. We can't stop until Hamas is eradicated. Imagine being gay in Gaza. He literally had a line where he said, gays for Gaza is like saying chickens for KFC.
Oh my
That was
God.
Literally a thing that he said almost verbatim.
Why did we fucking allow him here?
Yeah.
That is insane. There was also a segment that he did that really stood out to me where he was just talking about all of these different IDF soldiers that had lost limbs, but then they kept fighting, and then they lost limbs and recovered, lost limbs in battle, and then kept killing what he said is terrorists. But I mean, I don't know. The ratios there are pretty fucked up from every report that we've seen. And he's talking about how, oh wow, these soldiers, they're so great. They're like these ancient biblical warriors. They get hurt and they fight and then they go back out. This one guy fucking lost his legs, and he's like, yeah, now he's a commander. We promoted him for that. I feel like you lose your legs, you should
Sounds
get to
like
go
a DEI hire.
I feel like you get maimed in battle, you should get to not battle anymore. I don't.
You should get a fat pension.
Exactly. I don't think it should necessarily be celebrated that a soldier is maimed in war. And war in general, but an unjust war in particular, and is so moved by the cause that they just continue to go fight and they're lionized by the state. I feel like that's a trend that we should not support, and I feel like that's very fash of them.
Yeah, and also Netanyahu had a really good moment where I'm sure he's just lying here.
Yeah,
but he said that this current conflict since October 7th, Israel has had the lowest civilian death to combatant death ratio than any other like modern conflict.
Modern conflict in Israel?
Well, and it's like, I need to see your work for that one.
No, because I don't know if it was in the same thing that you were talking about. There was another standout moment that he had where he said something along the lines of, there have been little to no civilian casualties in Rafah.
That's just not true.
CNN came out immediately with an article saying, no, actually 45 died. And I think it was the operation that we covered where 45 people died and like 270 were injured.
Yes.
That was what we covered.
Because they flew an attack helicopter into like an apartment complex.
And it was a whole botched thing to like kill 2 people and rescue some hostages or something like that.
And they wouldn't confirm if they got the 2 people?
Exactly. They wouldn't confirm anything. The only thing that was confirmed is that 45 civilians were fucking murdered and 270 maimed and injured. 300 plus casualties. And Netanyahu got in front of our Congress, our elected representatives, and just fucking lied.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Yeah, we're fudging the math a little bit, I think.
I know there was another bit where he also compared like college protesters to Palestinians in the same way that Trump compared Joe Biden to a Palestinian, like as a slur.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good. Why are we allowing the leader of a foreign nation that's kind of a pariah state, should be a pariah state, to come over here and talk shit about our civilians? I don't know about that one. And trample on our civilians' rights to protest? I don't know about.
And he's from fucking Philadelphia. Like, what is he doing there? Like, we already have enough annoying guys from Pennsylvania.
Oh my God,
in the halls of Congress. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got John Fetterman.
Maybe Pennsylvania is just a breeding ground for Israel's strongest soldiers.
I don't know, man. It must be. You saw John Fetterman put on a suit for this?
Really?
Yeah, he had a suit on.
Fucking finally.
And all the memes were like, me when going to work and it's the dude in pajamas, and it's me when Hitler comes and he's got a suit on.
That's it. Why? Come on. Fuck, man. Really?
Yeah.
My God. He's the worst.
I hate him.
So corny.
Yeah, Fetterman fell off so hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's real bad. At the same time, about half of congressional Democrats boycotted Netanyahu's speech, according to Axios. Boycotting, of course, the right move. Rashida Tlaib actually went, but she was holding up war criminal signs the whole time.
She went, and it was good because her sign, I think, said guilty of genocide or something like that. Pretty good. She held it up the whole time, and the camera got her.
Yeah, she was actively protesting. But all those that boycotted, I think that's also the right move. Speaking of protests, though, there were thousands of protesters in D.C. at the time of Netanyahu's speech calling for Bibi to be arrested as a war criminal.
Fair.
Calling for a free Palestine.
Fair.
There was also a sit-in on Capitol Hill, I think before Netanyahu's speech, by Jewish Voices for Peace. They were doing a sit-in like in the rotunda. That's been labeled as an insurrection by the right. Everything is January 6th.
I'm so sick of January 6th. I am so fucking sick of it.
Yeah.
And it's like I don't know where this energy was like whenever ago. You know what I mean? It feels like a very new thing where any event that happens that Democrats do or some cause that's liberal adjacent does is the new J6.
Yeah, and well, it's like Jewish Voices for Peace protesters were not trying to like interrupt the peaceful transfer of power.
Yeah.
They were doing a sit-in in the rotunda.
And it's like, Democrats finally shut the fuck up about January 6th, and now conservatives are the ones bringing it back up.
They're like, this is literally an insurrection. Why
Come
are
on
they?
now.
Yeah,
Come on.
It's silly, especially because like most Democrats wouldn't endorse this. You know what I mean? It's just an activist group doing it. A lot of protesters were arrested or detained by police. Some were hit with pepper spray, batons, that sort of thing. All things we come to expect when it's police engaging with like any good movement broadly.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, look at history books.
Yeah, there's been a lot of images circulating of pro-Hamas protesters, quote unquote. And I don't deny the reality of these photos. There certainly were people in the crowds that were like, you know, pro-Hamas, holding the Hamas
There's
flag.
a lot of annoying people out there.
And it does, like I said, it seems like there were some genuinely bad actors in the crowds. I condemn Hamas.
I do.
And I condemn political violence.
I legitimately condemn Hamas.
There were some pictures of people that had like spray painted on the Liberty Bell, the fake Liberty Bell, by the way. It's not the real one. It's a replica.
Oh, no, spray paint.
Yeah.
Wow.
Because isn't the real Liberty Bell like in Philadelphia where Netanyahu's from? I think that's where the real one is.
Probably.
Either way, it was a replica. They spray painted on some statues too, saying like Hamas is coming. Bad. Don't do that. I condemn Hamas. However, as we said during the college campus protest saga, a few bad actors in a much broader movement doesn't delegitimize the movement as a whole.
No.
And while, yes, obviously don't do that. I think that's bad. I don't want bad actors to take advantage of the movement here. It's a thing that happens. It's a thing that always happens. Like if we were to judge any movement based on the worst faith actors among them, no movement could ever be justified ever.
And it's also like, can you really name one bad actor from the civil rights movement?
Right, they're forgotten.
Can you name the instances of bad actors that got in the middle of civil rights protests? Can you name the instances of bad actors that got in the way of Vietnam War protests? I don't think so. But what can you think of when you think about those? You can think about state violence in response to people protesting for causes that turned out to be right.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Like there were absolutely people in protest to like apartheid South Africa or the Vietnam War that were saying that they wanted complete death to America and for the country to burn down. Right?
Exactly.
But we don't remember those people. We remember the movements for being broadly accurate and in support of the right things, looking back on history.
Because they were insignificant.
Yes.
Like broadly insignificant. They didn't do anything. They didn't mean anything. They just sucked. Like
yeah, exactly. In response, Kamala Harris did release a statement denouncing the burning of the U.S. flag and basically any and all anti-Semitism. Pretty bog standard. That's what you're going to get from any Democrat.
Wholly expected.
I saw some people getting angry about this. I don't know if it was just online lefties taking advantage of the fact that people now got to vote for Kamala Harris, but it was a pretty normal response. I didn't expect anything different.
I feel like it's you can very much always expect for politicians to condemn the most bad things that are going on while staying silent maybe about the cause. I don't expect Kamala Harris to pull out with a keffiyeh and be like, oh no, they're actually doing the right thing. They're bad actors, and explain this in a nuanced way.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't think this means that she's going to be just like Joe Biden when it comes to Israel.
Yeah.
I think there are things that she has done that have signified that she is at least back when she was running, she cynically adopted Medicare for all. She is no stranger to changing her positions with the public tide. And like, for example, maybe if Michigan uncommitted is enough of a worry, if the things going on here in Michigan are enough of a worry for her to stop, or for her to have to
change course.
change course, I think she might. And she kind of has a little bit before. I think in March, she was the first person in Biden's administration to call for a ceasefire.
And then to walk the statement back.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like I think there's hope. I think there's room. And I think things could go better. And there's no point now in shutting ourselves off from that idea.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think she'll probably be incrementally better. I don't expect anything that crazy out of her. Some reports, as you've said, have said that she's been ahead of Biden on the issue. She did boycott the address as well. She wasn't there on Capitol Hill. And some reports came out after she had met with Netanyahu behind closed doors that Netanyahu was not happy with the meeting that he had with her. And then, of course, Netanyahu went and met with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago.
Which I think that should tell us something.
Which is, very telling.
You know what I mean?
That he was happier with the Donald Trump meeting than the Kamala Harris meeting.
I think that's very telling to see that maybe these two aren't the same.
Yes.
Maybe there are very meaningful differences when it comes to this conflict specifically.
I do think that she will be better than Biden on the issue. It might only be marginal, but in a world where, in a region where a lot of Palestinians are just being ruthlessly murdered right now, marginally better is marginally better. You know what I mean?
And it's it doesn't change the idea that it's still our job to scream about it.
Of course.
It's still our job to put public pressure, and we always will put public pressure, as everyone should. But it is a matter of expectations, right? I feel like maybe the most we could hope for is conditioned aid. Mm-hmm. I don't think she would get there and impose a ceasefire like we want. I'll still scream about it, you know what I mean? Yeah. But I would hope that maybe we could foster the conditions for conditioned aid.
Yeah.
So that they can't just keep doing shit, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the pressure will be there as it should be. As soon as Kamala Harris gets elected, we should turn our back on her.
Absolutely. That's what I plan on doing.
Exactly. Like that is our role in the sort of political climate that we're
I'm
in
a Democrat now. 6 months out of every 4 years.
Yeah. It's unfortunate, but a candidate that can win that won't support genocide in some way isn't an option.
Yeah.
Like, that's just how it is.
And it's like they love
It's
Trump.
always been how it is.
They fucking love Trump in Israel. Yeah. We talked about this months ago. Mm-hmm. They fucking love the guy.
Trump's got a higher approval rating in Israel than here.
I think that should be alarm bells for anyone who fucking cares about the issue.
Just one extra news story before we go, and we're not covering this extensively because, it's kind of just a banal thing in America at this point, but I did want to bring up the murder of Sonya Massey at the hands of police in Illinois. We've covered so many police executions on this show in the past, especially when it's, a member of the black community being just executed by a police officer for no reason whatsoever, regardless of the circumstances. We've talked about a lot of those before. It's a similar kind of thing here, but it was a lot more explicit because the details of this are Sonya Massey, again, in Illinois, she called the police because she thought there was an intruder. Mm-hmm. The police showed up. There was no intruder. They stayed for a little while. They noticed she had boiling water on the stove, asked her to take it off. So she picked it up and she said something to the officer like, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus Christ or something like that.
She was very clearly having a mental health episode. And clearly I think the mental health episode started from before she called the cops, from when she thought there was an intruder in her house. Maybe she thought there was an intruder in her house that triggered it. I don't know. I'm not here to litigate those facts. You know what I mean? The fact of the matter is something happened. The cops were there. It was a very banal interaction. It was an interaction that they could have just walked away from. She said something that sure you can argue she shouldn't have, but then cop told her, Put it down.
Words are not violence, as conservatives always tell me.
Exactly. Words are not violence. They really aren't. And she was told to put the boiling water down. Yeah. She set it down on the floor, or she set it down not on the burner.
And she started apologizing.
In her hands and was on the ground apologizing.
Importantly, the cop said, I'll fucking shoot you in the head or something like that.
Yeah.
After she said, I rebuke you in the name of Christ, she said, you better not or I'll shoot you.
Yeah.
And then she
crazy thing to say, actually.
Crouching behind the counter, and she was apologizing profusely. And I guess from what he says, he thought that she was going to throw the water, even if she was going to. It doesn't matter. And then he shot her in the head and she died.
Yeah, even just we back up.
Yeah.
We back up and maybe we de-escalate the situation.
Yeah, water can't travel that far. You take some steps back.
And it's like we could de-escalate the situation instead of immediately going to the most extreme thing to say.
Also, you know what boiling water does? It evaporates.
Yeah, it
evaporates.
It's like it wouldn't be like that crazy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You'd have some boils on your skin.
Oh, if you got it thrown on you.
If it actually could hit you, but that doesn't even matter because that wasn't the case. That's not what was going to happen. It wasn't in her hand. She was apologizing. You're supposed to de-escalate the situation from there. You're not supposed to just start screaming, "Oh, I'll fucking shoot you," and then do it.
Yeah. It was completely unjustifiable. I mean, it was a modern day lynching. It was terrible. The guy did lose his job, and I think he's in jail right now.
No bond, I think, too.
Yeah,
so he'll be there till trial.
And yeah, he's going to go on trial. Who knows if he's going to get sentenced?
Yeah.
qualified immunity and all that. I mean, we know Donald Trump says he wants even more immunity for police officers.
He wants just blanket immunity for police officers, as if qualified wasn't enough.
It's bad. It's a terrible situation. It's another police killing of a black American. Terrible situation. Of course, there were some unhinged responses online.
Oh my God, yeah.
Obviously, the right wing just justifying it. I didn't see too many right wingers talking about it because this was explicit.
It's unambiguously bad, and
the
it's
body
also,
cam footage is just horrifying.
Not he shot her 3 times or something like that. Fucking insane. And then when his partner or another cop on the scene was like, "Oh my God, we need to give her medical attention," which is standard protocol.
Mm-hmm.
When you do something like he said, don't waste a med kit on her. It was a headshot.
Yep.
Like he's playing a fucking video game.
Yeah,
brother, what is going
on?
on?
Save the supplies for later. Type.
Exactly.
Yeah, crazy.
What the fuck?
It was terrible. I don't even know if we should highlight the online response. Yeah, okay. No. But it was just unhinged entirely, and it was a very sad news story. And if you were wondering why we didn't dedicate a whole news story to it, it's just because it's right there. It's in your face. It's terrible.
Exactly.
But yeah.
Stupid.
That does end another episode of Head in the Office. I hope you enjoyed.
I do.
I hope you're a member of the K-Hive officially.
Yes. K-Hive's strongest soldiers coming out.
If you really want to prove your loyalty to the K-Hive, head over to patreon.com/headintheofficepod.
That's right.
That's where the K-Hive's at.
That's the K-Hive congregation over there. You can become an officer.
Buzz.
Shit, maybe there's a renaming of the Patreon tiers coming along.
Buzz, baby.
Buzz.
We are Democrats.
I'm a blue dog Democrat, baby. Roo, roo, roo.
Anyways.
Special thanks to my also fellow Democrats for the next couple months. Caden Kraut, Lord Tyler Radiant, Krista Postman, Christy Beck, Dylan B., Andrew Harris, Mike Chiplinski, Mattias T., Omar Zuno, Clayton LaFed, Mark Yeager, Caleb Joy, Rich Tari, Gavin Mayer Maldonado, Hunter W., Fergalaki, Max Vesquez, Jacob Rogers, Colton Mooberry, Fixer Punk, Jim Egbers, Jeff Muzzy, Bagel Burrito, Cincy Alex, Joe Stenstrom, Adrian Sandoval, Chloe Sam 601, Colleen Cuts, Veryuk, Jennifer DeVoe, Big Bird Titty, Crawfishin, Benny Bennington III, Alexia Benanti, Nietzsche, Big Booty Beatdown, Sam Maloney, Two-Headed Boy, Ben Shapiro's Boyfriend, Dictator Jace, Luke O'Shea, Cucker Tarlson, Danielle Jackson, The Word of Microsoft, Jennifer Science, Aaron and His Gundam Gundams, Darth Father, Tailored for Content, Corey Chambers, L.E.N., Devin Hatchard, Retro Mondo, Emma the Dude Slayer, Veronica aka V, Raxon, Ash Smith, The Grottler, Flower Clown, Beetlebugs, Murder in a Trench Coat, Lonnie Rogers, Slavic and Sapphic, Casey Lynn Kelly, Snake Eyes, and Hope of Giants, A.K. Ghana, Aquana, Don,
Zach Lantian, Info Russell, Austin Greif, Marcus Corbett, Caleb Roper, Taylor Rensock, Cammy, Tylen Freeman, Steak Daddy, Tay Tay, Isaac Hodges, Madeline C., Kayla Lowe, Anna Valinic, KCC, Sayesta West, August, Particular Pikmin, Sir Capalot, Jeff Signs, Howard the Duck, Brennan is Egg, JR, Drew Batchilder, Froggy Gumdrop, Zen doing their best, Jackie Boy, Shameless, Coherent Babbles, Sasha, MJ is Sharp, Michaela Muncie, The Wallace 3000, Jared Finch, Tactical Snowflake, Son of Ander, Vanilla Bryce, Chris T, Kishan Lala, Amanda R, Hanky Panky, Tyler J, Damian Blues, Ashley White, Dick Cheney in 3-inch Heels, Lalo Valesco, Particulon, Memfrez, Gorgeous Girl Mukes, Lauren, Uncrassomatic Boar, Sasquatch, Rhonda Stiletto, Midwest Marxist, Joe the Mailman, Gary from West Michigan, Shawnee GG, Juniper Not Jupiter, Stacked Crabs, Patrick Simpson, I Crowley, Urban Peach, Lord of Forlorn, Holt Forsyth, Dialectic Dreamer, Kevin Kisaya, Schnoodle, Booty Snakes, Erica, Krusty Krab, Dewfairy, Chelceratops, Austin Lima, Lane Waltz, Azem Fida Hussein. If I'm saying that wrong, just let me know. Azim. And my mom, thank you all so much for supporting the show on Patreon. If your name's not on this list and you want it to be, let us know. Let us know and become a patron if you haven't already.
Exactly.
If you are a patron.
Yeah, and you want your name on the list, just come on, just fork it over.
Yeah, come on now. If your name should be on the list, if you are a patron and you deserve to be here, let us know if we missed you. And if you're a patron that's enrolled in the Hiddo postcard program,
yes,
those are going to be sent out first round.
That's right. Sent out tomorrow is probably when they'll get mailed out. Shoving them in the mailbox tonight. Shoving them in the mailbox.
Stuffing them in the mailbox, just like I'm going to stuff those ballot boxes. Yes,
oh my
sir.
God.
I'm doing voter fraud.
All you
That's
out
a
in
joke.
Maricopa County. You know what to do for me.
Kamala Harris will win Georgia.
Exactly. Yes, you will.
Because I'm going to be there.
Yes, you will.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
Have a great week.
For federal reasons, that's a joke.
Yes, that's a joke.